Hello everyone, today I'm going to be continuing the reading of Blaire Wilson's first book by Jennifer Castle. Chapter 16, Dress Quest. I felt like a celebrity stepping out of the taxi at Kellenberger's. Strangers hurried by on the midtown Manhattan sidewalk. The frenzy of energy and movement was so different from even the busiest day at Pleasant View Farm. "You've arrived!" shouted Mrs. V, who was waiting for Kat and me in front of the store. She was wearing a turquoise pantsuit and matching hat, with a rhinestone pin on her lapel that read, "Mother of the Groom." "This is so exciting!" she gushed, ushering us inside. After we checked in at the front desk, a receptionist showed us to a waiting area. "Make yourselves comfortable," she said with a smile. "Your consultant will be here in a moment." Kat and I settled down on a plush gray sofa. We looked at each other and immediately started giggling. "I can't believe I'm here," Kat said. "Me neither," I said. I picked up a copy of Empire State Weddings magazine and started flipping through the pages. I stopped at a photo of a bride and groom in front of a barn, sort of like ours. "Kat, look," I said, showing her the picture. Mrs. V leaned over to see too. "Maybe the barn at Pleasant View will be in here someday." "Maybe," Kat smiled. "That would be something to see." A moment later, a woman dressed in black introduced herself as Monique. She clearly knew Mrs. V because Mrs. V gave her one of her death grip hugs. "Let's see those gowns," Mrs. V said. "What gowns?" asked Kat. "I haven't picked any out yet." "I stopped in yesterday and chose a few for you to start with," said Mrs. V. "Oh, I see," Kat said. As we followed Monique down a long hallway, Kat leaned close to me and whispered, "No photos unless I say so, Sprout." Who knows what Mrs. V picked out? Monique opened the door to a room full of silk, lace, taffeta, sequins, beads, and feathers. Kat seemed afraid to approach the dresses. "Oh gosh," she murmured. "I know, there's a wide range of styles here, Katerina," Mrs. V explained. "But that's part of the adventure. You never know which dress might make you say yes." "This is just a start," Monique added. "Once I know what your taste is, I'll be happy to find other gowns." "It'll be fun," I assured Kat, "like trying on costumes for Halloween." Kat followed Monique into the dressing room. Mrs. V and I settled on a bench across from a half circle of mirrors. It seemed like forever before Kat finally came out. She was wearing a white silk dress with an enormous hoop skirt. She had to tilt the hoop up and shuffle sideways to get through the dressing room door. Mrs. V drew in her breath. "Oh, how lovely!" Kat's expression said, "Oh, how awful." Mrs. V, I asked, "I think that skirt is bigger than the gazebo. If Kat wears that, there won't be room for Gabe at the ceremony." "Good point, dear. Next dress." The second dress had a narrower skirt, but the bottom of the hem was a circle of feathers. There were feathers at the scooped neckline and the elbow-length sleeves, too. "Now that makes a statement," said Mrs. V, "and you must admit it's perfect for a country wedding." But Kat climbed up on the platform. She met my eye and gave me a small shake of her head. "You, look like a sulky chicken," I said. "That's a problem," Kat said, climbing off the platform. "I don't want to look like Dandelion on my wedding day." The next dress, a one-shoulder gown that was covered in a million tiny beads and crystals, was clearly Mrs. V's favorite. "Oh, Kat, what a lovely bride you are!" Kat's smile was genuine. "Thank you." "You're so sparkly," I said. "Is this one a maybe?" Mrs. V asked hopefully. "Well, not this one," Kat said. "All these beads feel too fancy for me, and I don't really care for the one shoulder look." She turned to Monique. "Do you have one with lace?" "Oh, yes," Mrs. V squealed. "There's a lovely lace option in there." It was a long time before Kat came out again. When she did, she was wearing a strapless dress that was snug against her hips and legs and flared out at the bottom around her feet. "Monique tells me this is a mermaid style," Kat said, shuffling over to the platform. She could barely move her legs to walk. With Monique's help, Kat made it up the small step. Then she just stared at herself in the mirror. "What do you think, Kat?" Mrs. V asked. "Do you like the lace?" After a long pause, Kat finally said, "Yes, but I don't think I'm the mermaid type." Mrs. V looked disappointed. "Gabe is planning on them riding a 2-person bike from the gazebo to the barn," I reminded Mrs. V as Kat shuffled back into the dressing room. "Kat wouldn't be able to pedal in that dress, and mermaid doesn't really go with farm fancy." "You're right, I guess," said Mrs. V with a sigh. "It didn't look quite so fishy on the hanger. Oh dear, I'm not sure Kat's enjoying this." "I think she is," I reassured Mrs. V. "Kat doesn't dress up that often. She just needs to get used to seeing herself in something other than work clothes." Mrs. V said. "Blaire, you may be onto something." The next time Kat came out of the dressing room, she was wearing a sleeveless white satin dress with a wide band of beading around the waist. The style was simple, and Kat was beaming. "I'm so sorry, Kat," Mrs. V said quickly. "I picked that one before I knew how you felt about beads." But Kat shook her head. "No, I like this," she said. Kat stepped up on the platform, and Monique adjusted the skirt so that the short train settled behind Kat in a gentle flutter. "What do you think?" Kat asked, meeting my eye in the mirror. I smiled. "You look perfect." Kat smiled too. "Josephine," she asked, "do you like it?" "Well, it's rather subdued, but it certainly suits you, Kat." I squealed. "Kat, is this the dress? Have you ended your quest?" "I do like it," Kat smiled and turned to Monique. "How much does it cost?" When Monique told her, Kat's smile disappeared. "Whoa, that's just too much. I'll need to look at something in a lower price range." Monique nodded. "Of course. Now that I know what you like, I'll go get some others." As soon as Monique left, Mrs. V said, "Kat, if you love it, let's buy it. Consider it my gift." "That's so kind, Josephine, but I can't. I would never spend this much on a dress I'm going to wear once." "But it's your wedding, Kat, and—" "Yes, it's my wedding, and I know what I'm comfortable with." Kat's voice was firm. "This dress is beautiful, but it's too expensive." With that, Kat got off the platform and hurried into the dressing room. Mrs. V was absorbed with picking imaginary lint off her pantsuit. Idea spark. "Mrs. V, do they sell dresses for mothers of the groom here?" She looked up and smiled. "They do. Maybe we should go look at them for a bit and give Kat some time to look at dresses by herself," I suggested. Mrs. V agreed, so I tapped on the door to Kat's dressing room. "It's me," I called softly. Kat opened the door and waved me in. She was still wearing the satin dress. When I told Kat where I was going, her shoulders relaxed. "Thanks, Sprout. I owe you." An hour later, Kat and I said goodbye to Mrs. V outside Kellenberger's and watched her get into a cab. She was carrying a giant dress box. Mrs. V had purchased a dress for the wedding, but Kat had not. On the train ride home, Kat leaned her head against the seat as we chugged along the Hudson River. Phew, she said. I'm exhausted. Yeah, me too, I swallowed hard. I'm sorry you didn't find anything. It's okay, Kat said. She offered me a quick smile as her phone chimed with a text message. She spent some time messaging back and forth with someone while I stared out the window. Eventually, Kat fell asleep, her phone still in her hand. I didn't want her to drop it, so I pulled it gently out of her grip. Just as I put it down on the seat in between us, a new text message popped up on the screen. Shannon. Please don't say that, Kat. You can do this. Don't think for a second about calling off the wedding. What? I blinked a few times, trying to make sure I was reading that message right. But there it was, in bright, glowing letters. Kat must have told her friend Shannon about her frustrating day dress shopping with her future mother-in-law. Was Kat having doubts about the rest of the wedding plans? Would she really call things off? My stomach did a flip-flop. This wedding was going to be one of a kind. It was going to make Kat so happy. And Grandpa too. I just have to work harder to make sure Kat could see that for herself. Aww. Okay, so it looks like Kat is having some pre-wedding jitters, which I think is pretty normal, or so I've heard, from the brides and the grooms even too. So I don't think that Kat is really thinking about calling it off, but she's just a little bit worried maybe just with everything. It sounds like they had a really long day, but a pretty fun one. Dress shopping at the place where Dress Quest happens? Obviously, that's Blaire's dream come true, but I think that wasn't really for Kat. So a lot of stress for Kat right now. And I think, though, that Blaire, I don't know, she might be a little bit young to understand what Kat is really trying to say to her friend. At least that's what I think. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see what happens. I'm hoping this wedding doesn't fail, but I don't know. We're just going to have to wait. I'm so excited, though, to get to the next chapter. I really wish I was continuing to read it right now, but I am going to make you guys wait until the next video, so hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the little bell for post notifications on the channel. Also, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and thanks for watching. See you soon!